Good morning. Welcome to the wonderful new
Hi, everybody.
library.
We just are running a few minutes behind. Micah, our desert wildlife director, got stuck doing a little rehabbing, and he's just a couple minutes out, so give us 5 minutes or so and we'll get started. Thank you.
This is the culmination really of a number of years of effort to design and build the new Rancho Mirage Public Library, and now we're seeing it come into fruition today on January 8th, 2006. I think the interesting thing is that this is 10 years plus 1 day to the date of the opening of the original Rancho Mirage Public Library. I just feel very, very blessed.
this thing on? Perfect. Hello, everyone. My name's Micah. If you don't know me, I'm the director of the Desert Wildlife Center. I really appreciate your patience. Sorry, I was working on patients earlier today. Had to go to the shelter, do x-rays, drive back up here. So it's been a crazy day. But I'm really excited to share one of my favorite people with you guys and just learn more about wildlife. He is such an incredible man. Andy Blue has been working with animals for longer than I have been alive, and has been a huge mentor to me, and I'm really honored to call him my friend now, but he actually helped me get my start in wildlife rehab over 4.5 years ago. So we're really excited to have him here and chat with you guys today. He used to be a curator at the San Diego Safari Park. He worked at Project Wildlife, which is a large volume wildlife rehab center in San Diego. He's been all over the world. Last year, you were in Cuba doing rhinos? So yeah, he's pretty much helped with any sort of animal in the world that you can think of. Andy probably has touched it at some point in his life. So he's a really cool guy. Truly has taught me so much about wildlife, but also just about how to be a good leader, how to inspire people, how to get that next generation inspired about wildlife. And so I'm really honored to be able to bring him up and share him with you guys. Thank you so much.
I think Micah would do a better job than me speaking. And thank you all for coming, and I sure appreciate it. And I drove up from San Diego this morning. I just returned from Beirut Monday night and was in Beirut and Qatar. And so it's good to be home. I'm a little jet lagged, but hopefully we'll be good, and I'll get home and go to bed. So, but this presentation, I really want to just talk a little bit about some of the work that I've been doing in the Middle East. And I've spent a lot of my career there. Everything from reintroducing Arabian oryx into the deserts in the Emirates to the deserts of Oman, as well as in northern Africa and Chad, Tunisia, those areas. A lot of these areas that have quite a bit of unrest, and the animals obviously suffer in these areas. So that's always kind of been an area of interest for me. And I find that, animal people are the same, as we all know. Anywhere in the world I go, whether it's Beirut, whether it's Iraq, I really don't feel threatened by anyone. Everyone's appreciative that I would take the time to come there. And it's not just me, there's others. And I've met some amazing people over the years that do this type of work and live in these areas. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about what this project we're working on in Iraq with the Persian leopard, and I'll give you a little bit of history of him. And then just at the end, I have a few slides on the trip to Beirut last week. So anyway, hope you enjoy it. So Micah kind of went over my career. I spent quite a bit of time transferring animals to zoos for the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. So whether it was reintroducing animals into the wild or lots of rhinos are born at the safari park, so they're shipped to zoos and safari parks all over the world. One thing I noticed when doing these shipments is once I would take the animal to its facility, I'd look at some of the other enclosures or look at areas nearby. And often there were areas that really needed improvement with their animal welfare. And these are countries like India, Sri Lanka, and I'm not going to pick on any of them. It's just some of these countries really struggle with taking care of people. And so the animals are in these zoos, honestly, by no choice of their own, of course. Often there's wildlife trafficking in these areas, and that's the case with this leopard that we're going to get to. But anyway, yeah, rhinos in Havana, the people in Havana, to me, are some of the nicest people I've ever worked with. They're very welcoming, very friendly, very appreciative that I would go there. Abu Dhabi, I used to spend 1 to 3 months a year there during my tenure at the safari park. So lots of time there. India, I should be back in India, the Gujarat state, which is a rehab facility that's being built, a brand new facility over there. In fact, they just reached out yesterday about maybe coming back over there. And you don't have to be an animal expert to look at that leopard on the side with the lock hanging off of the crate. That's the kind of stuff that we talk about is not just, safety of people and animals, and whether that cat was jumping around and that's what knocked it up on its side. It's hard to say, but I didn't want to be there, whatever the case may be. That was a wild leopard. And then on the other photo is just Mexico that I try to go down there about once a month. I live in San Diego, so it's close, and I often bring donated animal care supplies, whether it's flea and tick meds or dewormer or equine products as well. I always do it on a motorcycle, so I load up my bike and then head south. This is in Bahia de Los Angeles, but there's many rural villages and fishing camps that have all these little dogs that are running around. And if you spend any time in Baja, you probably see them a lot. So the main focus on this chat is going to be mostly about this Persian leopard in Kurdistan. And if you're familiar with Kurdistan, it's an autonomous region in northern Iraq, in northern Iraq, and it's there's, as you can see, it's bordered by Syria, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and it's a pretty volatile area. The U.S. just opened the largest U.S. embassy in the Middle East, or actually in the world, in this region a week ago. So for me, I've been there now 3 times, and just trying to really help with wildlife trafficking, primarily out of Syria, but they're usually going through Syria into Kurdistan or Iraq and into Turkey, and from there they go up into Europe. And these can be anything from primates to carnivores to reptiles, just about anything that they can get a hold of. They'll try to sell to zoos and other parts of the country. So private collections, I've seen hyenas in the back of liquor stores, just crazy stuff. So yeah, it's pretty heartbreaking stuff to see, but again, the people there, they really do try to make things a little bit better for the wildlife. And so the way I got involved in this was several years ago, about 2014, the U.S. State Department sponsored groups of conservationists that would come from all over the world and come to visit throughout the U.S. different zoos and conservation programs. So they came to the safari park. There was a Kurdish woman there, and she asked me about a zoo in the city of Duhok and in Erbil, which are in Kurdistan, and said, is there any way you can help with looking at these zoos and trying to make the life better for these animals? So I said, yeah, I'd love to. And she said, it's safe right now. Sorry, again. It's safe, excuse me, right now. But at that point, it was hard to get over there. I'm going to take a cough drop. Sorry, I'm going to blame it on jet lag. So she put me in touch with a veterinarian there, Dr. Suleiman Tamir, and he's a domestic animal vet that has kind of been roped into doing wildlife stuff. So I flew over and met him in 2018 and then again in 2020. And again, his specialty is domestic animals, but we've been trying to work with him to just give him a little bit of experience with wildlife because he's getting called to help with animals in the zoo. So this leopard, for instance, it's a male Persian leopard, which there's only about 1,000 of them in the world. So there's a few in zoos, there's a few in the mountains between Iran and Iraq and Kurdistan, and they kind of work their way into Turkey. But this leopard in particular was predating or going after villagers' goats and actually attacked a couple of people. So they set a steel jaw trap, which is, a terrible thing to use, and it wasn't attached to anything, which is bad anyway around. But the cat got caught in the trap, took off. He ran for a couple days with this trap on his leg, and eventually Suleiman was able to get out there and dart it. And unfortunately, during the process of capture, he ended up losing his left rear leg. So yeah, so pretty bad situation. So we're really unable to reintroduce him back into the wild or put him in any kind of a breeding program. His future was at that point was just really to be in this small, terrible little zoo. So Suleiman posted this video of this leopard, and I'll show it here in a second. But this is what he showed to me back in December of last year. So he spends 20 hours a day in that little cave in the back there. He has access to the enclosure, but it's a terrible enclosure. As you can see, there's really nowhere for him to hide. He's a wild animal. It's bad enough to have a leopard or an animal that was born in a zoo, but to capture one from the wild and bring him and put him into an area in the middle of the city is just an awful existence for this guy. He's missing his right rear leg, so he's truly of no value to them. It's not like they can breed him. It's not like people are coming to the zoo, like they come to the zoo to see pandas. No one really even knows he's there because he hides. So when I reached out to Suleiman, I said, what can we do to get this leopard out of there? And he said, if you come back, we can meet with these Peshmerga generals, which are the people that oversee the wildlife, and see what we can do to get him out of there. So I said, okay, I'll be there. So I ended up coming in February. And there were a few objectives. Number one, to improve the leopard's enclosure and just give him some places to hide and get away. Leopards like to be up high, so we built some ladders for him to get up above the people, just to try to encourage him to come out and spend some time out of that little dark cave. We provide enrichment for zoo animals, other animals in the zoo. So there's bears, primates, lots of other animals. And it's very easy to show these folks how to come up with cheap, almost free ways to provide enrichment for the animals. Meet with government officials regarding the transfer of the leopard to a sanctuary, and then distribute donated animal care supplies to some of the, what we call IDP camps, which are refugee camps. So flew over there in February, met with Suleiman, brought all these supplies, which are donated by the Humane Society, as well as an organization called Polytech that gave me lots of supplies for horses. So there's lots of horses that they use for pulling carts or whatever else that they have going out there. As you can see, pet dewormers, equine meds, flea and tick prevention meds. And all of this is donated not only by the Senegal Humane Society, but also by Banfield Medical Group, donates a lot of the products as well. So many of these are expired, but for this type of thing, they're perfect. The leopard enclosure, as I mentioned, and you saw a little bit earlier, it's pretty Spartan. And the photo on the left is his enclosure, and then next to him is a jaguar and then a bear, and they all really have very minimal enrichment or places for the animals to hide and get away from the public. The leopards is there on the right, so you can see his enclosure. That's it there, and it's literally right in the middle of the city, so it backs up to a hotel parking lot and then a little children's playground. And so there's all kinds of commotion around him, so it's no wonder they won't come out. He just hides in there all of the time. We set up camera traps during the night just to see, and he did come out during the evening, but it was 1 in the morning or so. So I was able to purchase supplies in the city of Duhok and bring them out to the zoo. You can see we brought logs, and these type of programs, you really have to. I have my idea of how I want it to go, and then there's a bunch of other ideas how all the locals want it to happen, and you just learn how to take the little wins and get what you can get from them, and I'll show you a couple of examples of that. But all in all, they were really helpful, really receptive to improving the animals' enclosures. You can see we hired some of these young guys to do the work for us. And initially, we built some logs. You can see them behind there, which is kind of a ladder so the leopard could get up high, and then built platforms. If you have domestic cats at home, you know how they like to get behind things and up on top of things, and leopards are the same. They always want to get up high and see what's going on. And so, again, we provided labor for these guys, jobs for these guys to do the work, and just really basic places for the cat to hide. And it's funny because initially the ladder we're working on, I just wanted to use the logs, and I thought the cat could with 4 logs, he'd just climb right up and he'd be good. But everybody wanted to build a ladder, so I said, okay, that's cool. So that's the ladder that we came up with those giant gaps in it, which is more of a hazard than nothing, honestly. And I went back to my hotel that night, and I thought, he's going to fall in there and break his other leg, and I'm awake all night worrying about him. And so I came back in the morning and talked them into, and these are just pallets that we cut up. It's hard to find supplies there. So we cut up pallets and nailed them all together, and it's still not perfect, but it's much better than that ladder. And then this is kind of the finished product before we finish the ladder on the side. But again, we set up traps. We were there about 2 weeks, so we saw later on during the time we were there, he was going up behind some of the platforms and lying up on top, and we were bedding it down. And of course, the keepers weren't happy because they had to clean around all this stuff, and it was more work for them. But I think it worked out certainly in the end to his benefit. And I even was criticized before I went from a conservation group over there that reached out to me and said, "We heard you're coming, and we're concerned that if you make it too nice, they're not going to want to ship him out." And I said, by no means is that my goal. We're just trying to make him as comfortable as we can in this current situation, and my goal is to transfer him to a sanctuary. So in addition to his enclosure, we were able to find logs. We drove way up in the mountains to a military base that had some of these logs. And, it's such basic enrichment. If you go to Living Desert, I'm sure you see all the enrichment items that are offered. It's so foreign to these folks, and by no fault of their own, they just don't quite understand it. And so we get these logs, drill holes in them. You can see pouring honey. You can see the bear looking at the honey over there on the right. And, I'm sure these folks would just soon take the honey home, but just trying to tell them that, we just want to give these guys the most basic needs, whether it's adequate shade or shelter. It gets very hot there. It gets very cold, but things like this as well. And they saw the response from bears. They saw the response from lions, from tigers, other animals. And I'm hopeful that when I left, it would continue. Yeah, these are big Syrian brown bears. You can see the one on the left, again, really nothing in there. And then the guy on the right, while it's not much, we just advocate that you change it out, leave it with this guy for a day, and then put it into another enclosure. It costs money to do some of this stuff, so you can always take palm fronds that are on the ground and put those in with the primates, or rake up hay and feces from a horse enclosure, a deer enclosure, and put that in with the carnivores. There's just lots of different things you can do that are relatively either free or very cost effective. And I find that you literally have to spend a month there at least. You can't just go in and make all these suggestions and then leave, or it really doesn't go anywhere. And I see this a lot in the Middle East, where two things. You can either bring your pet, so you can see the cat on a leash. You can bring your cat to the zoo and show it to the people. Show it to the animals. There's a little Gwenin monkey in front of him checking the cat out, which is weird. But also they have dogs, and you can either rent the dog and take it for a walk. You can buy the dog, or either rent it or buy it, which makes really no sense either. But and that one, if you look in the background, there's a cave back there, and there's a little cockapoo guy in the back there. And I like to come in the morning before the zoo opens and walk around and look at things, and then come back in the middle of the day when it's hot and see, is there adequate shade? And when I came back in the afternoon, those dogs were gone, but that little guy was still in the back. And I tell you, he looked just like a dog in Palm Springs. I said, "How you doing, buddy?" And he wagged his little tail, and it was heartbreaking. And of course I said, "Oh, how much to walk the dog?" So I ended up taking him for a walk around the zoo and just really trying to give him. I would take one of these guys home if there was any possible way. But people do buy them or rent them, but it's kind of hard to see. All of us are animal people, and when you see animals in these kind of conditions, it's certainly challenging. And I've done it for many, many years, and I can say it bothers me as much today as it did 40 years ago. It's no one likes to see animals in these type of conditions, and if anything, it makes me almost madder when I see it, to see the way that animals are really treated as a commodity in some of these countries. Again, purebred dogs are not seen in these areas, so huskies, chows, Rottweilers, I see all those breeds for sale, and they're in just zoo enclosures, so you'll see a chow and a husky, and then a Syrian bear, and then a chimp. It's a strange thing to see. I work a lot also with just trash in enclosures. You can see all the water bottles and the debris in these enclosures, and really, I try to stress to the folks that these animals are, they ingest this stuff. It's going to either kill them or make them sick, and maybe put up signs, maybe have a security person there to stop people from doing it. But the culture is, it's just accepted, unfortunately, that if you pay to come to the zoo, you should be able to throw trash in the enclosure or whatever it is else you see. So again, it's hard, but when I go, I just try to really stress that it costs them money. Not only are you 18, and I noticed it was still sitting in the office when I was there in February. So 5 years later or so, it's still there. But hopefully they'll get it figured out. We also look at species-specific areas. These two toucans, for instance, were most likely smuggled in from South America and somehow made their way there. Birds don't like to be in an enclosure like this in the middle of, this is nighttime. They want to be roosting up in a tree somewhere quiet. So to have them in an area like that is very frightening for them. It's not the ideal way to keep them. And then I was there in July a couple of years ago, and it was very, very hot. And you can see their open mouth breathing there. The cage was actually almost too hot to touch because of the heat. Just asked them if they could move the bird away into the shade, move them into the shade during the day, and then in the evenings just take them away and not put them amongst a bunch of people with lights on them. And it's not only them. There's pelicans with loud disco music blared right next to them, just some crazy stuff that, the more you spend time over there, again, the more they're receptive to these ideas. And something as simple as that, just a perch for those two guys. And I was with the San Diego Zoo at the time when this was taken, and I remember my boss said, how'd things go in Iraq? And I said, it was fine. And I told him I gave these guys a perch, and he said, if you're familiar with the ISIS war and all the trouble in that part of the world, Peshmerga aligned with the U.S. forces and coalition forces and did a great job of stopping ISIS in Kurdistan before they were working their way up into Turkey. So very welcoming. This guy is a general, very high up in the government. Met with him. He agreed to release the leopard, and he said, I'd love to see it go to a sanctuary in the U.S. They have a great relationship with the United States, so he wants to move the leopard. We met with his bodyguards. Anybody that was there, they all agreed the best thing is to move the leopard. And I'll get into what happened once I left, but I remember I'd only been there a couple of days, and we were just so happy that they've decided to let us take the leopard away. And I really stress that, they know that they want to move the leopard, and rather than me coming in and saying, he's not getting the best care, we want to take him, I just stress that I can, you want to move him, and I can make that happen. I just want to help you get him out of there and kind of put it back onto them, and they seem to be much more receptive to it. When he did come, there was lots of media attention. And you may know, if you're familiar with Southern California news, the woman there is, her name is Dagmar Midcap. So she's a journalist. She was with Channel 8 for many, many years in San Diego. She's now based in Atlanta, but she does a lot of these type of wildlife programs. So she met me in Jordan, and then we flew in together into Iraq, and she documented the entire time. But it scares me. This guy's always got his finger on the trigger of his gun, as you can see. And then this is just the day that all the media came out. They did several interviews. And again, I really stressed, they wanted to know how I felt the animals being treated. And, obviously I want to commend them and say, it's great that you brought him in. He was injured. However, by no means does that mean this is the best place for him. He's a wild animal. He can't survive here. He's only got maybe 5 or 6 more years to where they only live 16 years of age or so. We think he's about 11. And they even stress, we don't want him to die on our watch. And I said, the longer he's here, the stress he's under, it's gonna speed that up. So we really need to work quick to get him out of here. And on the right, they wanted to see him. So he was hiding in the cave the whole time, but they kept stressing they want to see him on out. So we set up all these cameras, and then you'll see how he comes out. God, every time I see that, I hate it. It's, he's going to break his teeth. That sort of behavior, he's not going to last long. So again, we really want to make sure we can get him out of there. There are a lot of steps to be taken for this to happen. However, once I left, we had reached out to a sanctuary in South Africa, and they had agreed to build a big, beautiful enclosure for him. Everything was good, and then the government officials said, well, if he goes, we don't have any money, but we want to send 3 people on safari to Africa. We can't cover flights, visas, any of this stuff, but we want to go with him. That's the only way we're going to ship him. And we believe he's worth $70,000, which I don't know where that figure came from. And this was in February of this year, and I've been trying almost every day since I left there to try to work with them. And what do we need to make sure this that this happens? And we waited long enough to where the sanctuary in South Africa said, look, we don't think we can take him. So now we're focusing on a facility in Colorado in the States that does a lot of animals like this, and they've agreed to take him. They just need someone in Iraq to be kind of the point person to keep it going. So it's probably going to be me or a friend of mine in Lebanon, because Lebanon is close, he can be down there in an hour from Beirut. But there's a lot that needs to happen. So they have to surrender the animal, sign it off saying he's no longer our property. Once that happens, we can start the permitting process. So we need an import permit into the U.S. We need an export permit out of Iraq. We need to have a crate built that's built to the regulations that can fly on an aircraft. So that can be built in Beirut. So we probably fly to Beirut, get this crate put together, then ship it to Erbil, which is the capital of Kurdistan, bring it out, and then hire trucks or whatever else that we need to transport the leopard and get him on an aircraft. The good news is Emirates and Qatar Airways both have offered to fly him for free. They often do it either for free or very, very reasonable. And one of us usually accompanies the flight, which, I've done a lot of these, and you really don't even want to let the animal out of your sight because often the crate will sit out on the tarmac in the heat or the sun, or if it's cold. There's just lots of ways for the animal to get into trouble, or people poking into the cage or whatever. So to me, it's really stressful, and I've done it for many, many years. But even to this day, I'm so happy when the animal arrives and is out of the crate, and then he's on his way. But anyway, lots to happen before this can go. I did reach out to the U.S. Embassy there for their assistance, and actually met just before Christmas with the head of security there, and she was really good. And she said after the first of the year, they're going to make this a priority to ship the leopard to the U.S. I have a friend that literally was meeting today, drove up from Baghdad to Duhok to meet with Dr. Suleiman here to discuss the leopard and meet with the Prime Minister's office in Kurdistan. So I'm learning that you just have to keep going higher and higher. Suleiman may tell me something, the general may tell me something, but the higher up you go, if you get to the Prime Minister's office, if they say, let's make this happen, then it will happen. And I'm hopeful that the U.S. Embassy also, there's a new consulate general there that I've emailed her 3 times. She probably wonders who this weird guy is in San Diego that keeps emailing her about a leopard, but we haven't stopped. Every angle and it's finally starting to work out. So I'm optimistic that maybe next month I'll fly back to Beirut, pick up the crate, fly to Erbil, and then crate him up and get him back to Colorado. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the supplies are brought to these refugee camps, and these refugee camps are bordering the border with Syria and Iraq. So there's still quite a few pockets of ISIS sleeper cells in these areas. So there's these checkpoints all over the place. Honestly, every couple miles there's Peshmerga checkpoints. So I guess it's a somewhat dangerous place, but these folks, the refugees are often, maybe they're from Mosul in Syria, and they were bankers or lawyers or doctors, and because of the damage to many of these areas, they're moved out in. If I would even walk away from this camp, they would run up and try to bite me. So very, very aggressive. Every little village has several of them that they breed to protect their livestock. And they would grab the animal and we would sneak up and vaccinate them. But pretty scary dogs. There are, again, in that area, there's wolves, there's bears, leopards, of course, hyenas, foxes, and boy, that old guy you can see. In fact, we got a hold of him. He had a hernia, so we actually immobilized him and treated his hernia. But he's a true livestock protection dog, just watching the sheep in these areas. So we vaccinated probably 100 dogs. Very cold. I don't even know how cold it was. It was freezing up there, and these little kids are all running around in their little suits and dresses, and you know, it's very humbling, obviously, to go to these places. And I've always appreciate, you know, where I live, and then you see the way these folks are living in these certain areas. It's extremely cold, and they're truly doing the best they can. And seeing, I do appreciate, though, I do see a lot of support from coalition forces and different NGOs working in the areas, whether it's Doctors Without Borders or United Nations. Their vehicles are just about everywhere in that area. They knew we were coming, so they tied dogs with ropes and horses. Again, I had lots of supplies that I brought in to deworm equine, but also if you look at the mark on that horse's cheeks, you know, really even teaching them how to wrap with gauze or something else so that they're not, the bridles aren't digging into their cheeks. You know, some of the most basic animal welfare needs, we try to really convince them. And Dr. Suleiman, my friend the vet, is really, really good at that. And again, these are, you can't really tell, but on the left up above there's a couple little guard towers. So this area in particular is known for these ISIS sleeper cells. So there's quite a bit of military checkpoints, as I said, and lookouts. And anywhere you went, you're stopped, and they ask for passports and want to know what we're doing in the area. And due to the cold, they have these big greenhouses, and you can see all the animal feces in there. So that generates heat. So they put all their horses and, unfortunately, their children and their puppies and everything lives inside of these almost like hot houses. And but it's definitely warmer. It's as cold as it is outside. We were all kind of huddling in there, treating puppies. Pretty cute. In fact, I think they were giving me that one on the left, but yeah, pretty cute little guys. And then, Suleiman, he's actually a government veterinarian, so he'll be called to treat this horse and then go fix the hernia on the dog and then go vaccinate a bunch of other livestock protection dogs. So pretty interesting guy to spend time with, and I love it. Whenever I go with him, we spend a couple weeks just driving around, treating animals and visiting different parts of the country. I also, each time I go, I give an animal welfare presentation, and these are all veterinarians, and you can kind of see in the photos, but just ways, again, to provide shade and get the very cold enclosures. So the concrete's very cold, so just ways to get lions up off the ground. So you can build these little platforms to get them up, and tigers and bears, all these animals. It's very, very simple, and just try to stress, again, the importance of shade and water and whatever else is needed for the animals. And, you know, if you're familiar with the Yazidi people, they're a heavily persecuted religious minority group in Kurdistan, and they were, during the ISIS war, and even still to this day, there are still many that are held captive, especially the women and the kids. And so I really wanted to visit one of their areas this last time, and we brought a lot of school supplies and little stuffed animals and things for the children. But I wanted a photo of that sign with the USAID logo on there, and you know, hopefully that will continue. I don't know if it will or not, but most of these areas that I visit are often areas that rely on USAID and different NGOs to help the students. And we ended up going to a school by a group called Our Bridge, and I won't read it, but it's basically an area that teaches these young folks that were exposed to war and unfortunately still are. and they were actually really cute. They were this school. These are all orphans from the nice kids and very interested. And you can see Suleiman. He's showing a picture of the leopard and trying to share it with the kids. There you can see the leopard and there. Really nice folks and a great organization to work with over there. So my hope is, this is the final slide on this project, but with the leopard, I'm optimistic that, as I said, hopefully next month we'll be at the point where we can transfer the leopard and get him out of there and get him to Colorado. A lot has to happen. I'll probably be back over there at some point next month, but fingers crossed he's able to go. And then I'm just going to briefly chat a little bit about, as I said, I just returned Monday night from a trip to Lebanon. And as you know, there's a lot going on in that part of the world right now. And there's a small zoo in a pretty strong Hezbollah area of Lebanon. So Hezbollah is an organization that's down in the southern part of Beirut, but also in Lebanon and along the Syrian border. And this zoo, a friend of mine is in an organization called Animals Lebanon, and he's been trying to close this zoo down and get these animals out. So we've been talking for months and months, and then he finally said, I think the zoo owner has agreed to allow us to come in and start evacuating animals from there. The zoo has actually had shells and bombs go off against the back of it to where there was structural damage, and the villagers were concerned that a tiger or a lion or an animal's going to get out and get amongst the villagers. So unfortunately, that's what worked to scare them enough to get the animals, to allow the animals to be released. This is their enclosure. You can see these little guys were born there. The parents are still there. There was a male and two females, and you can see they just don't have any life in their eyes. The enclosures are terrible. So I flew last Sunday to Paris, took a Middle East Airlines flight down to Beirut, got in about 10 o'clock at night, Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, we drove out to this area, darted all three of these little guys, got them in the crate, got them into a truck there on the left. And, normally these journeys they can be risky, and I will say that this is one that I felt, going into it, there was about a 50-50 chance it was going to go bad because it was in a Hezbollah-controlled area, but there were also Israeli drones flying over, and the road was all bombed from missiles or drone strikes or whatever they have there. So the truck that we're using, this box van, looks like something that would be a target. So we were really concerned that they were going to make an attempt on our vehicle. I could hear drones. They kind of sounded like weed whackers in the sky, in the clouds, and I saw a couple of them, but we were only at this area, this little village, for about 2 hours, and we were able to load them up, get them in the truck, get back to Beirut, and I ended up going to the airport about midnight and then flying them to Qatar Thursday night. Spent a 20-hour layover in Qatar, and then flew down to Johannesburg with them. Unloaded the little guys, and that's where they're at now. Yeah, so jaguar, there's an adult tiger, so they want to go in and maybe next week go in, dart this point. The Pope was just there, and so we were trying to get in when the Pope. I do want to get back over there. We'll probably be back in July and try to get the remaining animals out, the remaining big cats. And that's my little guy. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Any questions or comments or suggestions? The question is there a quarantine? And there is. Especially with carnivores, they don't carry a whole lot of different diseases that concern us. So, like getting a health certificate to get these cats out of Lebanon can just be a vet can just look at the cats and make sure they look okay. We'll deworm them when we immobilize them. Like a veterinarian, I failed to mention, but I had a veterinarian meet me in Paris, and he and I both flew down to Beirut that night. and we deworm them. And then there would be a quarantine facility in Colorado. It's called the Wild Animal Sanctuary. I think they have a YouTube channel where they focus on the animals that they rescue. And in fact, right now they're bringing animals in from Argentina. I think circus animals are coming in. So yeah, there is definitely a quarantine process, but it's more strict, I think, with like hoof stock or pigs or animals like that. Mm-hmm. Yes. No, but I can certainly look her up. It's funny because when I worked for the zoo, they covered all my expenses, and then I left the zoo in 2018, and I just fund them myself. And most of the time, like some of the folks mentioned here, have covered my flights the last trip to Iraq. But to me, it's whatever it costs, it's worth it when you see these little guys and the changes that can make. My wife probably doesn't agree with all that, but there are some really big players that this leopard, a lot of people are watching it. The Bridget Bardot Foundation is offering to help with the funding. While I was in Beirut, there was another organization that Cher works with. There was an elephant in Pakistan that you may have seen a year ago or so. The same people are funding that, have offered to fund to help get the leopard out. So I think with him, for me, it's just having flying back over there, get in, do my thing, and then, like Beirut, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time there. I wish I had a little more time to see it because it looked pretty cool, but I was literally there 24 hours. But, these guys, again, it's worth whatever it takes to get them out. Yes? That's a great question. Yeah, where do they sit? Most of it varies. So these guys go on what we call a combi. So it's half cargo and half people. And I've been on one with some lions that the lions were roaring. I never tell anybody. I'm in just J7 sitting there all quiet, and you could hear lions roaring in the crate. And I just acted, look out the window like everything's cool. And one of the flight attendants said, the pilot wants to know if there's something you can do about the lions. I said, no. But they were going to boot them off the plane in Denver. It was going back east, and they said, well, we might have to take them off. I said, they can't go anywhere. They're in a crate. They said, well, the people in the back of the plane aren't too happy. They can hear them. And I said, just assure you there's no problem. But I've had rhinos on 747s, 3 at a time, big, giant crates, and there's cars and orchids and motorcycles, everything else kind of piled around them, and flown them back and forth to India like that. And so it really varies. Like these guys the lions went on a combi the other night, and it was easy. Yeah, but like I said, I don't like leaving them alone. I mean, that's the biggest fear is I've had that happen. I've had it happen in India where they pulled a big female Indian rhino out of pulled the crate off, and the flight was about an 18-hour delay, and they just set it out in the sun. It was unbearably hot, and I argued with them and said, she's got to be in the shade. And they said, well, you didn't pay for shade, so you don't get shade. And I said, well, here's my credit card. And eventually I just said, look, it's an endangered species, and if we lose this animal, you and I both are in trouble. So she got all wound up and said, put it in the shade. So we brought it into a hangar. And but many, like Qatar, for instance, they call them animal hotels, that when animals are in transit, whether they're horses or lions or giraffe, whatever it is, there are these quiet facilities in the cargo area that just focus on the animals. And Qatar has a great one, so we were there for 20 hours. I've been to the one in Frankfurt, the one in Amsterdam, Singapore, and all these places have them. And they're not open to the public, and they're nice lounges, for the attendant to go with. And often there's racehorses, especially in the Middle East, going back and forth from Dubai. So yeah, they're really well cared for, and the people are always really excited to have, and the staff's always excited to have the animals on the plane. I don't know about the regular folks, but yes, sir. Yeah, there is. I think I know a little bit of a lot of different languages. Please, thank you, whatever, of all things, the other day when we were in this Hezbollah region, the zoo is actually owned by, and if you're familiar with Hezbollah, it's a terrorist organization, or you can call it whatever you want, but that's kind of what it is. So of all things, I started speaking Spanish because I didn't want to look like an American. And there was a guy there, and he was from Venezuela, and he was a truck driver. And so I heard him speaking Spanish, and I could speak decent Spanish. So I started chatting with him in Spanish. I noticed the people from the zoo were looking at me like, what's with that guy, So, yeah, the language barrier is a challenge. In Lebanon, there's 3 or 4 different languages, so even depending on where you're at in the country, it varies. But often I have a translator depending on where we're at. And this gentleman that I was with from Lebanon, he's an American guy, but his wife is Lebanese, so she was translating most of the time for us. Mm-hmm. Yes? India, yeah. There's a great organization called Wildlife SOS that does, they rescue, if you've been to India, you'll see them, what they call begging elephants on the streets, where they're begging for money, and the streets are just baking hot, and they damage their feet and everything. So they rescue these elephants, and they have a beautiful area out near Agra where the Taj Mahal is. But they also teach the mahouts or the people that work with the elephants new skills and new jobs. So they're welders or school teachers or whatever, and they do an excellent job. And also, if you've seen the dancing bears, they're these bears that they kind of put a chain through their nose and they play music and make them. It's supposed to look like they're dancing, but it's torture for them. So they rescue a lot of these bears and seize them. And so anyway, that was with one of their sanctuaries in India. Mm-hmm. Yes. Dagmar. Yeah. She does. She's based in Atlanta now, but if you saw her before, she did a lot out of Southern California and spent time in Africa working on anti-poaching groups and things like that. And she's always told me, this is the first time she's traveled with me, but she said, if you're ever going to do something, I want to come with you. So I told her, hey, I'm going to Iraq to do this. And she said, well, I don't know if my boss will let me go, but she ended up coming with me. We met there. And I will say that she had a tough time. That part of the world is hard for women. And, if we would go into a restaurant, she would have to sit way in the back by the sink and the bathroom and all this. So we would all sit with her. But she told me halfway through it, first she wanted to leave. She said, I think I want to get out of here. And we were pretty far from the airport. So I said, just, whatever you want to do, we'll figure it out. But Suleiman, the veterinarian, was with us, and he didn't really want to deal with trying to get her back to Erbil and fly her out. And so she told me that there was nothing that she could have done to prepare her for this experience. And it was hard. I mean, it was hard. It was, you're already stressed and jet lagged and weird food, and then you're treated differently because you're a woman. And I can't say they were unkind to her. That's just the culture, And they, if anything, they were making sure she was comfortable and friendly. But it was hard. The hotels are $15 a night kind of flop houses, and I'm used to that, but I don't think she was. And so, yep. I think she will. She's been with me from the start of this whole thing. And since we started, I had a videographer with me in Lebanon the other day, one that left from Los Angeles, flew with me all the way there, a different crew in Beirut, a different crew in South Africa. So there's a lot of interest in this type of thing. And one was documenting for a Netflix deal and all these different things. So, but I feel for Dagmar because she's been in it from the start. She's the one who went. But all these people now that it's starting to happen are starting to come out of the woodwork and saying, we want to document it here and do these different things. But I do want to make sure she gets the recognition because she was a trooper. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah. I'd like to, the lion one, there's so much that happened in that week. And, this was kind of the leopard story, but I told tomorrow I would just throw in some slides about the lion because it was interesting and it was so fast that it's still hard to believe all that happened within 7 days from the minute of and I didn't know I was leaving until I think Friday. And because I think there were 2 people that I had to call. One was to get out of this presentation, and then Rita Myers, who's my main donor, was having her Christmas party, and I think I don't remember which one of you guys said when I called and said, I have to move some lions from Lebanon to South Africa. And you go, well, that's a good excuse, you know. And Rita said the same thing. She goes, well, that's the first time I've heard that. But, and it is what it is. So, but we'll do one on that. And there's a new organization, nonprofit, Heart of the Wild Sanctuary, that's just in the beginning stages. And they're looking at building a new sanctuary somewhere in Southern to Central California, and they really want to get into funding these type of programs. So the gentleman who was the photographer that accompanied me, he's the CEO of that organization. So he said, let's pick one, and this was a win right out of the box. And so he wants to document the leopard. If we go back and get the other remaining animals from Lebanon, then he would. I keep saying we both don't need to go. You know, if you want to go, you can go, or I'll go. But I'm used to traveling alone, so it's just different, I think, having somebody with you, especially a film crew, you know. Yep. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Suleiman, Dr. Tamir, there's an organization called the Kurdistan Organization for Animal Rights Protection, and it's just him. It's if you look in Kurdistan Animal Rights Protection, it's him by himself, and he's a government employee, but he's not really a veterinarian for wildlife, so he's learning that as he goes, but he's got a heart of gold. He knows this leopard needs to go, but he's in a tough spot because, you know, people want money for it or they want a free safari. There's all these things, and Suleiman knows. I talk to him a lot, and he tells me, he said, you must believe me, I want this leopard to go. But he even made a comment that these people could kill my family if we just have to be very careful and cautious with what we're doing. And but he's spending time with him is fun, and the guys from Wildlife SOS are the same thing. The elephants, you ride around with them, and they're pulling pythons out of toilets and all kinds of crazy stuff in India. And I love it. I'll be back in India in February, so it'll be fun to see them. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Is there maybe we can end on like a happy, like this region or this country, you've seen a mind shift or a change in how they treat captive animals and maybe don't capture so many in the first place for entertainment? Is there any place where you can point to that gives us hope?
Sure. I think India is leaning that way. And literally yesterday, I had a guy reach out to me from Trinidad that said, "Are you interested in going to India? If you've heard, there's a new place called Vantara, and it's the wealthiest person in India now has this massive animal collection, and he's kind of been getting a lot of." People criticize him because perhaps he was purchasing animals, wildlife trafficked or something like that. So I was asked to go with a few other people and do an assessment of this place in February and really look at it. And I was watching some interviews on the gentleman who owns it last night. And to me, he seemed really sincere about wanting to do what's best. He mentioned Wildlife SOS, that he wants to work with them. And so I do think that things are changing for the better. You know, in India, certainly, Mexico, they no longer, and Latin America no longer has animals in circuses. So that's where all these animals that are going to Colorado are coming from Argentina and Peru. So I do see a shift. There's still trafficking, you know, the countries like this, the people struggle as it is. And I understand they're wanting to put food on their table. As much as I can't stand it, I see the need or the why behind it. They're just trying to make money and survive and feed their families. But it's heartbreaking to see it. So, you know, there are wins. And one thing I've promised with this leopard deal is there's a zoo in Baghdad, and there's a brand new zoo in Erbil, which is in Kurdistan. And the one in Erbil was just accredited by WAZA, which is the World Association of Zoos. And I'm shocked that it was accredited. I've been there, and they're telling me that it's a new zoo and it's much better. So I want to go and see it, but I've offered to go to Baghdad, to the zoo in Baghdad, and see if we can upgrade that facility. Now that one area is accredited, perhaps we can get other zoos to buy into it and see the value with it. So we'll see. But, you know, federal Iraq, which is where Baghdad is, it's different. I have to have soldiers with me or security at some point, and so that's just part of it, you know. So does that answer your question? But there is a lot of good news, and these little lion cubs is a win. That's a big win, and I feel terrible leaving animals behind, but they're next. They're coming, and I fully believe that'll happen. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks, sir. All right.
Thank you so much, Andy. We really appreciate you coming and talking about stuff, and it sounds like we've got some more talks in the future to talk about as well. I really wanted to highlight one thing that you said, which was obviously the way that we see animal welfare here is going to be a little bit different than some of these countries, but I think it's really cool that Andy also highlighted the fact that we can't just go in and go, you can't treat animals like this, and then not give them the tools to succeed, right? So instead of coming in and villainizing these people for treating the animals this way, which again, we all can agree that we can do better, Andy comes in and is kind and goes, here's what we're doing, and here's how these little tweaks can make a world of difference for this animal, right? And so when these people are using, you know, these street side zoos and stuff like that, instead of just villainizing these people for trying to put food on the table and provide for their families, working with the government and helping find different more sustainable jobs for them, right? Instead of using those animals, I think is we work with the people too. We're not against them. We don't want to villainize these people. Ultimately, it just comes down to lack of education and not understanding. And so it's so cool that people like Andy are willing to, whether it's, you know, go spend their own money and their own time going out into these areas, sometimes not always the safest areas, to be able to connect with people and connect with animals, I think is really incredible. So we're so honored to be able to, you know, share his story. I'm honored to be able to have him as a mentor and friend, and just keep helping out these animals all over, not just in Coachella Valley, but truly throughout the world. So we're really excited about that. So thank you guys for spending the time with us today.